The third compliance principle is commitment and consistency. Commitment and consistency. Cialdini's rule is that after committing to a position, we're more willing to comply with requests that are consistent with that position. One good example is the toy manufacturers and toy retailers' plight. As we all know, toys are primarily sold around Christmas. Every kid in America develops a wish list of toys that they hope to get from Santa or from parents at Christmas time. And every parent who loves his or her child, of course, will go to the toy store and attempt to buy that toy or toys. How many times have you heard where one goes to the toy store a few weeks before Christmas only to find that they're all out of that particular toy? Of course, toy companies market test the products, the toys they develop and distribute, and you would imagine that they would have plenty of toys on hand to meet demand. But again, you find that the toy is out, that there was a big run on them, and the toy is no longer there, and of course it'll be available a week or two after Christmas. But the dilemma there is, the dilemma then is posed: what do you do as a dutiful, loving parent? Of course, you don't leave the store and then on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve leave a note under the tree to your child to the effect that they're all out of the toy, or Santa didn't make enough, but we'll have that toy to you right after Christmas when they become available again. No, you don't leave a note for a child. What you do while you're in the store is you buy another toy, a great toy, perhaps even better than the toy that you initially came to buy. And so in this way, the toy manufacturer and the toy retailer makes a double sale, whereas only one sale was intended. Now, I have to raise the question, is this intentional or not on the part of the toy distributor, be it the maker or the retail store? Is this intentional to run out of toys? Because after all, again, the toy manufacturer and the toy retailer makes a double killing. Commitment and consistency. One type of commitment and consistency relates to foot in the door. The essence of the foot in the door is to make a small request that would be hard for a target to turn down, and then once they've complied with this smaller request, you follow it up by a larger one. A good example is available in this online video that I'll play.
It's time to talk about the psychology of persuasion. A few years ago, researchers approached house owners and asked them to place a huge sign saying "Drive carefully" in their front gardens. Everyone refused. The researchers then approached a second group and asked them to place a small "Drive carefully" sign in their gardens. Almost everyone agreed. 2 weeks later, the researchers asked those in the second group to replace the small sign with a large one, and an amazing 76% of people accepted. Psychologists call this the foot in the door effect. Agreeing to a small request makes people far more likely to then agree to a much bigger one. So if you want to persuade someone to do something, start small before moving big.
The study upon which this film relates is one by Friedman and Fraser, conducted back in the 1960s. Now, after seeing the video, you might want to stop the video. And again, ask yourself why. Why does this work? Okay, so you might want to stop the video here and ask yourself why commitment and consistency works so well. Commitment and consistency is behind all sorts of manipulative sales tactics that are employed on a regular basis. Bait and switch is a common tactic. Although illegal, it's still often used. Bait and switch is apparent when a retailer advertises on television or in newsprint a great sale, and then lo and behold, you go to the store and you find that they ran out of them, perhaps only after a few minutes of opening that morning. What do you do then? You had your heart set on a widescreen TV for that weekend. You were going to have the boys over for a football afternoon. Of course not. Commonly, we'll stay at that same store and look for a TV, another TV, of course, without getting the great deal. As I said, companies cannot do this legally. They get around it, however, by often at the end of the commercial or somewhere, if it's print advertising, down at the bottom of the page in very fine print, indicate that only so many, maybe 5 TVs with this special deal will be available. So that's how they get around it. A lot of stores have fake sales. That is, they advertise special great deals for their products, clothing, television sets, whatever it may be, but it's really not a discount. They're always at that price. However, just by indicating that a store is having a sale, it brings a tremendous amount of people out, and again, once they're there, they will commonly continue to shop. So commitment and consistency is a very valuable tactic that is employed. Also, commitment and consistency plays on existing commitments. I've had the experience of having life insurance agents come over, and they'll commonly give me the line that it's apparent that I'm a very loving father and husband, and God forbid, in the event that I wasn't around, I would certainly want my wife and children to be taken care of. So again, the existing commitment that, yeah, indeed, I do love my family. Well, I want to be consistent with that. Therefore, I need to provide some kind of financial resources to them in the way of life insurance should I pass away. Television commercials right around major holidays, particularly Christmas, Valentine's Day, jewelers, among others, will show what to buy. And so you can imagine that jewelry sale that we just saw advertised, where the man gives his wife the great diamond necklace. You can imagine that coming on the television and you sitting there with your wife or your girlfriend, and that commercial comes on. What do? You are a loving husband or boyfriend, obviously, and therefore, if so, you need to follow through and get her a really special gift like this diamond necklace. So, guys, I guess this underlines one important lesson, and that is when you're watching television with your significant other, always hold the remote so that you can anticipate when such kind of commercials are going to appear. back in the days of telemarketing, when telemarketing was common on the phone, I remember getting calls like this. Answer the phone. On the other end, the salesperson would say, "Mr. Miller, how are you doing today?" And I would typically say, "Just fine." And their response would be, "That's great. Unfortunately, there are millions of children starving to death in whatever area of the world." So again, they got me to make a commitment, indeed, that I was doing good, but that many others weren't, and therefore, if I was doing so good, wouldn't a contribution certainly be appropriate? The fourth compliance principle is attraction, and we'll address that in the next film.